Hey everybody, and welcome back for another one of these monthly wrap-up videos. Today I'm going to tell you all about my month of January, what I read, a brief synopsis of what I thought of those books, and also take a look into the current month, which is February, and kind of show you guys what I have planned. So January was a great reading month for me. I actually read 9 books. Well, we'll go more into that in a second, because a couple of them I didn't start in January, but I finished in January, and one of them I started in January, but technically finished in February. Anyway, it was a total of 9 books that I kind of messed around with in January, and I had no idea that I read that many, but it does make sense in retrospect because I was sick for a little while, and that requires a lot of time in bed, and I did read in audio while I was sick and at home resting. And then I also had quite a bit of travel time this month. I had 2 different trips where I had road trip time and airplane time. And so again, that's just lots of reading time. And apparently I took full advantage of it because I read some great books, and I'm really excited about where I'm going with some of this stuff. So I read The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, and this is book 1 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and I loved this book. I decided to read it this month because of the read-along that Mike is doing on his Discord server, but this is a classic fantasy story, just absolutely delightful to read. It was exactly what I was looking for because I'd been reading some kind of like darker and edgier fantasy, which I also love, but this just absolutely took me back to all the reasons I love fantasy. It has some of the tropes that we associate with fantasy, but guys, this is one of the OG series. This is one of the originals, and a lot of these series that we have come to know and love those fantasy tropes from, they are originated from this. So I don't really call them, I call them tropes because you know what I'm talking about, you know, hidden chosen one, magical artifacts, all that kind of stuff, animal companions, but like these are the things I love about fantasy, and then it was just done so well in this book, and I cannot wait to keep going. Spoiler alert, you're going to find out in about 5 minutes that I am reading book 2 currently, and I'm just as pleased with it. I absolutely love the direction that the story's going. I love the characters, I love the world, and I just love the way it makes me feel when I read it. So Dragonbone Chair was a huge win for me. So next up is the Nevernight Chronicles. This is a trilogy by Jay Kristoff. I had not planned on reading the entire trilogy in January. I was going to do 1 book a month. But what can I say? I got sucked in and couldn't put them down. Absolute page turners, and I really, really liked the series. I read Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff late in 2021, and I loved it so much that it ended up being on my top 10 favorite things I read all year. And so I had to jump in to another trilogy he had written and be like, what's the deal with this guy? Is he like a one-hit wonder as far as I'm concerned? Or do I really just dig what he writes? And I know that, I guess these books are sometimes like written off as YA, and I can see why some people might say that. There are some YA factors to these books, but overall I would call them very adult content, and I really enjoyed the story, the characters, the world building in this is super, super strong. And that's not always really important to me, but when it's done well and it's not overcomplicated, I do really appreciate it. And the magic in these just kept getting cooler and cooler. I really, really enjoy these. Awesome, strong female protagonist that's not obnoxious. I love a strong female protagonist, but only if it's written well, only if it's believable to me. And I absolutely loved Mia Corvere, the main protagonist in these books. So I read all 3 of them, Nevernight, God's Grave, and Dark Dawn. I liked all 3 of them so much. I would recommend the series not to anybody. That's one thing about this series, is there are people who really don't like it, and I can see why some people don't like it. It's not for everybody. But I mean, I loved the series, and I'm definitely going to recommend it to specific people. I would rank them. Number 2 is my favorite. Number 1 was my second favorite. Number 3 was probably my third favorite. But that's really not saying anything against book number 3, because if you're just going to rank them, something has to come in last. But overall, the story was awesome. I liked most everything about the ending. I will say it was a satisfying ending. There's a couple things I had nitpicks about, but for the most part, I was just really impressed and overall very pleased with the Nevernight Chronicles. So pick those up. Let me know if you have specific questions about why I said I may not recommend it to everybody. But yeah, let me know if you have questions. But I love that trilogy, and I'm really glad that I read it. And not that I got it over with, but I think I am kind of enjoying this idea of not spreading things out quite as much. And if you like something, just keep reading it. There's no need to pace yourself as long as you're still having fun and you don't feel like you're burning out. You know, schedule be damned. Just read what you like, right? Speaking of series that I am really enjoying and don't want too much time to go in between books, because when I'm not reading it, I can't wait to get back to it. That would be the Forgotten Warrior Saga by Larry Correia. I read book 2, House of Assassins. Book 1 is Son of the Black Sword. That's the one you have to start with. It's so good. You need to read it first. Book 2 did not disappoint. I am really excited to continue with this series because for some reason I thought it was a completed trilogy, but then I found out that there's going to be like 6 planned books, and that just made me even more excited because I like having things to look forward to, and I don't want this to end. Like, I do like a good trilogy every now and then, but I feel like this story is bigger and it needs more books to be told, so I am really excited to have something to look forward to with those future releases. But House of Assassins was awesome, and it just makes me more excited to keep reading them. I read some Chuck Palahniuk this month. I read Fight Club, which was a reread for me, but it barely counts as a reread because the first time I read it, I was probably 17 or 18 years old and was honestly just trying to look cool in front of my anarchist friends. But I read this with some buddies and we enjoyed the experience. Definitely way out of my wheelhouse. Chuck Palahniuk has a very specific writing style, and I think it is effective in delivering the type of story that he tells, but it's not necessarily my favorite. We are going to watch the movie together. I've seen the movie probably, I don't know, 10 times. It is a favorite, but I think it's a story that translates to a visual medium a little better than the book, at least as far as my personal taste goes. But I will say I do think I prefer the ending in the book to the movie ending. But all in all, a really awesome adaptation, and I'm glad I read this with friends. Okay, I also read book 1 of The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I did this another read-along that is going on in Mike's Discord. This read-along is being led by Scott, the bald booktuber. I don't know if you checked out his channel yet, but his videos are awesome, so I'm going to link his channel below. But he is the one that's heading up this read-along, and book 1 was really good. It was out there. It was way different, not what I was expecting. But then if you were to ask me, I can't even really tell you what it was I was expecting. But I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very cool, introduced some really out there ideas that I think is going to work so well with the setting and the concept, but also with Stephen King's writing style. So very excited to keep going with this, and this will be a 1 a month series for me. I read kind of on a whim, I read Night Circus. I guess it's not totally on a whim because it was in my video. I made a list of like in-betweeners and palate cleansers to read for this upcoming year. And I'm trying to pick things that, obviously things that sound good to me, things that are highly interested, things that will captivate me, but I also want to push the comfort zone a little bit. I want to go out of my typical wheelhouse, which is usually fantasy with some sci-fi. This is a fantasy book, but it is totally different. So this is more like Victorian era, and the magic is actually like magicians versus wizards and dragons and spells and wands and that kind of stuff. And man, this was such an interesting book. I did talk about it a little bit in another video. I'm not even sure what video I talked about it, but it was very interesting. But the more I think about it, the more I think I liked it. It was very atmospheric, kind of whimsical, dreamlike. It's nothing like what I typically read, but something about the way the story was delivered, the way she writes, the setting, everything about it just really worked for me. And it's going down for me as a thumbs up, and I will definitely recommend this to people. All right, this book is maybe a little bit embarrassing, I don't know, but this is one of the ones I mentioned where I was like, I don't know if I should really count it for this month, because I started reading this book in March of 2021, and it is a smut book. It is just like nothing but a terrible sex book. I started it in March and have just been kind of like reading little bits and pieces ever since. Because the truth is, it was awful. It was very terrible. And I'm not just talking about sex. I like sex in my books. If you like sex in your books, these have A lot of smut, but it's well written, it's believable, it's tasteful, yet it's still like super steamy and erotic in some ways. So if you're into that, but you want a book that's actually well written and has a great storyline, read Nevernight. This book is called The Den of Vipers, and it is by international best-selling author K.A. Knight. This is a book I heard about through TikTok, and I just heard about how steamy it was. But all the other comments were saying, but it's actually really good. Like, the story's really good, the characters are good, the writing is good. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm a hot-blooded woman. Like, I like to read some steamy stuff sometimes. But because I read so much stuff that's like truly amazing, I tend to get a little picky about the way it's written and just the overall quality of the story. So when I kept hearing that this one was actually good and super sexy, I was like, okay, this is the one for me. And they lied, you guys. Like, the story isn't good, the writing isn't good, the characters were absolutely ridiculous, and it was a terrible book. And the funny thing is, I got it on Kindle, and I just kind of assumed that it was going to be like a 300-page book. I don't know why I assumed that, but it's not. It's really long. It's like 700 pages. And so I was always entertained enough by it to keep going and not completely DNF it, but never entertained at a high enough standard that I would stick with it for more than 50, 60 pages at a time. So it took me like 8 months to read this book, but I did finish it in January. And I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that it was not good and I do not recommend it. Let me see, is there anything else? Oh, the other book I mentioned that kind of doesn't really count would be Dark Dawn, because I started this one on January 29th and I finished it on February 1st. I finished it like by 10 a.m. on the 1st, so I don't know if you want to count that for January or not. But in the end, it really doesn't matter because I don't really keep score. Maybe if I was to win like a prize or a trophy or something, I would. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Just read the books you want, and if it's one book in a month, great. If it's 9, cool. But in the end, it really doesn't matter. As far as my book of the month goes, part of me is tempted to talk about J. Kristoff right now and book of the month because I was so thoroughly entertained by those books, but also impressed. I really, really liked that trilogy. But for me, there's no question about it. Dragonbone Chair was my book of the month. It was excellent. It was everything I had been promised and more. And there's really just no questioning or wondering why Tad Williams is so influential and why so many of the other authors I love, like Robin Hobb and George R.R. Martin and John Gwynne, are, influenced by this man, and you can see it in their works, but not in any type of a rip-off way, in my opinion, only in a way that's just like heartwarming, where you go, I can see how this man really inspired you. And anything that inspires talented people to express their own creativity, I think that's such a win. And I love just kind of going back to the origins. So I loved reading this book, and I love everything it's meant to me because of who it's influenced. So love this book, and I cannot wait to finish up the trilogy this month and next month. All right, looking into February. I actually don't have much set in stone for February, and I'm very excited because I have no idea what my month is going to look like, and I'm pretty excited to look back on the month and go, that is not what I expected to happen, but I'm glad it did. I'm just loving kind of following my gut and following, other people's leads and joining these buddy reads on a whim. I love being able to say yes. So this has been very fun for me. But I do have 4 things absolutely set in stone, but thankfully they're all 4 things that I'm very excited to read. And it's just nice to not have anything on my forecast or my horizon that doesn't sound fun to me. I don't like dreading reading things because reading is my favorite hobby. So let me show you a couple things I have in stone, and then we'll kind of get into some maybes. So I am going to read Piranesi by Suzanna Clarke. This is a book that I honestly don't know very much about because people seem to love it, but they can't tell you what it's about. And that makes me excited because it makes me think that the whole story itself is going to be so intriguing and interesting and mysterious that people can't talk about it much without giving things away. That kind of seems to be the vibe I get from this book. So I'm excited to read this. I'm reading it with a couple friends, and I've got it all loaded up and ready. I'm not reading it currently, but this is going to be an eyes only read for me. And so since my other book that I'm reading right now, which is Tad Williams, is mostly audio. I'm doing this one immersive, eyes and audio, but let's be real, I'm doing mostly audio on Tad Williams because I just really, really enjoy hearing that type of story. this will be an eyes only read for me. And I kind of like to counterbalance audio with something that's just me and my eyes, you know, read it in bed for a little while, read it when the kids are, you know, calm, doing their own things, but that just doesn't happen quite as bit. So I usually like to have 2 books going at one time for that reason. So very excited about this, to figure out what the heck it's even about, and I will tell you more about it, or what I can say about it at least, on the next one of these videos I do next month. So like I said, I have started The Stone of Farewell. That is book 2 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I don't have a bookmark in here at the moment, but I'm only probably 15% in. I've just been reading it kind of leisurely. We are having snow days here, so I'm not at work. At work, I get to have headphones, which is awesome. So I get a lot of audiobooking done at work, but we're having snow days right now. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can hear all my kids right now. Anyway, I am very happy to be back in Austin Ard and reading this book. Like I said, I think I'm only about 15% in, but so far I'm very pleased with the way it's going, and it just feels like slipping back into a comfortable favorite pair of sweatpants reading books like this. And so I'm very happy with book 2 so far, and I cannot wait to keep going. Another book I'll definitely be getting to in January is The Drawing of Three. That's book 2 of The Dark Tower by Stephen King. Again, I don't know much about this book, mostly because it's a book 2 out of a huge series. And so I don't necessarily have, I'm not saying I don't have high hopes for it, because I've yet to read something by Stephen King that I didn't at least enjoy. But I know there's probably a lot of groundwork being laid in this book, like, you know, new characters being introduced, traveling to different places, and the story just continuing to expand. So I don't really know what to expect from this book, but I do expect that I'll like it. Book 3 of the Forgotten Warrior saga is called Destroyer of Worlds. Like, what a cool name is that. I absolutely love these covers, by the way. I think they are cool. Like I said, when I started this, I did think it was a completed trilogy, so I was like, all right, 3 books, let's knock them out. But like I said earlier, it is incomplete, but no need to worry. Apparently, this is a guy that writes books super consistently and pretty frequently, and I personally am really looking forward to another series to have anticipated releases for. So I'm excited to finish this up, to be caught up with the series, and I'll let you guys know what I think, but I have a hard time seeing myself not loving this book because I was so impressed by the first 2. So yeah, Dark Tower, Forgotten Warrior Saga, Piranesi, and continuing with Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is the only thing I know for sure that I'm doing this month. But here's a couple ideas I have for other books, because I don't know if I'll have as much time to read this month as I did last month, but I do imagine that I'll probably read more than 4 books. So as you can tell, I have read a ton of fantasy over the last 3 or 4 months even, with a few things sprinkled in. But I do want to start some more sci-fi. And one series I have planned to start this year is The Expanse. And so I'm not sure if I'm ready to start another big series, since I do have several things going right now, but part of me really wants to start with Leviathan Wakes and begin my time with The Expanse, because I hear nothing but awesome things about this story and these books. I'm just not quite sure if I'm ready to start a new series right now, but this one is very tempting to me because I'm being drawn towards some sci-fi. Another option, let me know what you think, but I haven't read a Star Wars book in a while, and I had so much fun reading the Thrawn trilogy that I want to read more. And like I said, I've been craving some sci-fi, but I don't want something that's like a huge undertaking. So these Star Wars books might be a perfect sci-fi palate cleanser for me. This one I have right here is Jedi Search by Kevin J. Anderson, and it is volume 1 of the Jedi Academy trilogy. This was recommended to me by Mike, and I take his Star Wars opinions very seriously. So that is an option. And something else I could do is continue on with the Legends of the First Empire, and this is book 3, Age of War. I'm a huge Michael J. Sullivan fan. I've enjoyed both books 1 and 2 of Legends of the First Empire so far, and I'm very eager to keep going. I just kind of feel like I'm in this mode where I'm trying to wrap up a bunch of series, and so maybe moving forward on this one would be a great idea. But then again, it's more fantasy, and I'm not sure if I want to maybe get myself into a fantasy rut. I don't know what you guys think, because on one hand, if I'm not burnt out yet, I'm enjoying myself, I don't feel the steam running out, maybe I should just keep going with fantasy. But on the other hand, I've been there, done that before, where I kind of get myself into a rut from overexposure, and I don't want to do that again. So anyway, these are the things I have planned for February. Here's some ideas I have for some palette cleansers. But if you have any suggestions, I'm interested. When it comes to palette cleansers, I am looking for something either sci-fi or out of the fantasy genre. So let me know if you have any suggestions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.